Got it. Okay, be careful about what you say because it's going to exist for all eternity, okay, in this recording. So thank you for coming to this class. It looks like we have how many people? Quite a few anyway. And I hope you all got the handout, which consisted of a chapter from Zen Sourcebook. Some of you have the Zen Sourcebook, and that's good. So Stephen Addis was actually behind doing this Zen Sourcebook. He was a professor of religious studies at the University of Kansas, very much interested in Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. Had his own practice, so he didn't practice at the Kansas Zen Center, but we were very close friends. And it was his idea to put together the Zen Sourcebook. Judy and I contributed some, but he was the driving force. He died about, I guess, 4 years ago now. Truly a wonderful person and a very good artist, and he did the drawing of the sixth patriarch. It's on the front cover. It's also in your handout because it's in that part of the book as well. So here's the Steve. I'm going to ask you to put off questions until we've been through the chapter that you received. And I'm going to read through most of it and make comments. And if you want to have that in front of you, that might be handy if you wanted to jot down a note, or you could just listen. And I'm starting with I don't actually see the page number, but it's a chapter on Huineng, chapter 4. And I'm not going to read all of the italicized preface, but on the second page of this, I want to point out that this narrative at the very top of that page, page 20, this narrative emphasizes sudden enlightenment, which was to be a feature of the Southern school Zen, while the Northern tradition emphasized gradual attainment, although this distinction is not always clear cut. It's not always clear cut in the tradition, but I think in our own practice. And sometimes the question is raised, well, should we aim for gradual attainment or sudden enlightenment? And the usual advice, which is mine also, is forget about it. Just practice, and don't have the sort of goal either sudden or gradual. But it's good to know that this is a part of the tradition, this distinction. And a lot of teachers that I've talked to and other experienced practitioners agree that, hey, it's a little of both, So you can have this sudden experience, then it has to be digested. And if it's not digested, it doesn't mean much at all, although it can be interesting. What I'm going to do is read through this, most of this first chapter that you have here, and comment as we go along, but again, asking you to hold your questions. Please jot it down so you won't forget if you have a question until we've been through the sutra, and we have plenty of time for that. So the Platform Sutra was actually, as this first paragraph indicates, delivered at a monastery, Paolin Monastery. And all of the officials were there and all of the dignitaries. He already had a reputation by the time he arrived there. I'll let him tell the story. What I was about to say, he said better than I could. Good friends, the second paragraph. Our enlightened self-nature is pure and clean, and it can be used to understand and attain Buddhahood. Let me tell you something about my own life and how I came to understand the Dharma of the Zen school. My father came from Fanyang, but was dismissed from his governmental post and banished to become a commoner in Xinzhou. Unfortunately for me, he died early, so my mother and I lived in poverty and distress. We moved to Nanhai, where I sold firewood to help support us. And I think that's what Steve Addis is illustrating. He's cutting a bamboo, and I'm not sure bamboo was used for firewood, but he's trying to represent that, I think. So one day, a customer brought wood from me and requested me to deliver it to his shop. He received the wood and paid me. But as I left the shop, I saw a man reciting a Buddhist sutra. When I heard the words, my mind immediately awakened. I asked him what was the name of the sutra, and he said it was the Diamond Sutra. And Huineng is frequently associated with the Diamond Sutra. This book, for instance, the Diamond Sutra and the Sutra of Huineng, and a number of other books along this line. There are about 5 or 6 pretty good books on the Sixth Patriarch. So anyway, he has more than 1,000 followers. Master tells his disciples to read the Diamond Sutra in order to reach their own essence of mind and attain Buddhahood. It must be due to some good cause from one of my former lives that a customer for my firewood gave me 10 silver taels, the upkeep of my mother, and advised me to go seek out the 5th patriarch. After I made my arrangements for the mother, I left, and 30 days later, it's about 500 miles that he traveled, so he walked at a pretty good clip, so he's headed north. Paid reverence to the patriarch. He asked me where I came from and what I wanted, so I replied that I had come as a commoner from afar to pay homage to him, and that I asked for nothing but Buddhahood. The patriarch said, "You're a barbarian from the south. How could you expect to become a Buddha?" I replied, "There are people in the south and people in the north, but their Buddha nature is the same. As a barbarian, I may be different from you physically, but what difference could there be in our Buddha nature?" The patriarch was ready to speak further, but he stopped because of the presence of other people around him, and ordered me to join other followers at work. I replied, "May I say that wisdom arises in my mind, and since I do not stray from my essence of mind, I am in a field of blessings. I don't know what work you would have me do." When I read this for the first time, I thought, this guy's got some nerve, with this comeback. But hey, I've come to admire that nerve. And the patriarch said, "This barbarian has a sharp mind. Go to the backyard and speak no more." So already, clearly, the patriarch, the 5th patriarch, is recognizing his quality. So he went to work splitting firewood and pounding rice. More than 8 months later, so 8 months he's doing this, the patriarch came to see me and said, I know your understanding is very deep. I have been considering what to do. I have not yet spoken to you in case some evil men might do you harm. Do you understand? Yes, I replied, and to avoid having people take notice of me, I haven't come to the main hall. One day the patriarch summoned all of his followers and said to them, the question of birth and death is a most important matter. All day long you seek out only your own blessings instead of freeing yourself from the sea of death and rebirth. If your self-nature is deluded, blessings will not save you. Go seek for wisdom in your own minds, and then write me a stanza, by which he meant a 4-line poem. Whoever understands the essence of mind will be given my robe and teachings to become the 6th patriarch. Go quickly and don't linger, for thinking and reasoning won't help at all in perceiving your self-nature. The person who can understand will perceive it even if engaged in battle. After receiving these instructions, the followers withdrew and said to each other, no use in us concentrating our minds to write verse for His Holiness, since the head monk, Shenchu, is our instructor and is certain to be the winner. It would only be a waste of effort on our parts to write the stanza. Let's just follow Shenchu. Sorry for the mess. Shenchu himself thought, since the others would not submit a stanza because I am their instructor, I must certainly compose a verse, for if I don't, how can I know if my understanding is deep or shallow? If my purpose is wisdom, my motive is pure. If I desire to become the next patriarch, however, my mind is worldly, because I am trying to usurp the rank of a holy person. Yet, if I don't submit a stanza, I'll never achieve the Dharma. How difficult, how difficult. In front of the patriarch's hallway, there were 3 corridors that were to be painted in the court by the court artist, Lu Chen, with images from the Lankavatara Sutra. These would depict the transformations of the assembly and the genealogy of patriarchs for veneration by the public. Shenchu composed the stanza and tried several times to submit it to the patriarch, but every time he approached the door, his mind became so perturbed that he broke into a sweat. He simply did not have the courage to present it, despite trying 13 times over the course of 4 days. Finally, he thought to himself, it would be better to write it on the corridor wall and let the patriarch see it. If he approves, I will come and bow to him as the writer of the verse. But if he doesn't approve, I will realize that I have wasted many years here receiving the reverence of others. How could I then practice the Dharma? At midnight, Shenchu went secretly to his lamp to write his stanza on the south corridor wall, posting the following verse to present his understanding. The body is the tree of enlightenment. The mind is like a bright mirror stand. Time after time, polish it diligently so that no dust can collect. After writing this, Shenchu returned to his room without anyone seeing him, but again he worried. When the patriarch sees my verse tomorrow, if he is pleased, I will be ready for the Dharma, but if he says it's unfit, it will mean that I have bad karma from previous lives, so I am not qualified. I cannot guess what he will say. In this manner, he could neither sleep nor sit at ease with himself. The patriarch already knew that Shenchu had not entered the door to perceiving his own nature. The next morning, he sent for Lu Chen and went with him to the south corridor, where he unexpectedly found the stanza. He said to the artist, I'm sorry to have caused you to come this long way, since there's no need for you to paint the wall now, as The Diamond Sutra says all forms are transient and unreal. We will leave this verse here so the people can study and recite it. If they put its teaching into practice, evil realms can be avoided and great merit will be the result. And he ordered incense to be lit and for all his followers to pay homage and recite the stanzas so that they might come to realize the essence of mind. After they had recited it, they all said, excellent. At midnight, the patriarch sent for Shenju to come to the hall and asked if he had written the stanza. Shenju replied, yes, I do not dare seek to be patriarch, but I hope that you will tell me if my verse shows even a grain of wisdom. The patriarch said, your stanza demonstrates that you have not yet perceived your own nature. You have reached only the doorway and have not yet entered. To seek for complete enlightenment with such a mind cannot succeed. For to achieve supreme enlightenment, you must instantly understand your own fundamental nature and essence of mind. This fundamental self-nature has no birth or death, and at every moment you must realize essence of mind. Once this suchness is known, you will be free from all delusions. Suchness is absolute reality, and when it is perceived, you are in a state of enlightenment. Why don't you go and take a few more days to think it over and then submit another stanza? If this verse shows that you have entered the gate of enlightenment, I will transmit to you the robe and the Dharma. Since you bowed to the patriarch and withdrew, and for several days he tried his best to write another stanza, but could not, because his mind was uneasy and agitated as though in a nightmare. He found no comfort in walking or sitting. 2 days later, a young attendant was passing the room when I was pounding rice, and he chanted the stanza by Shenju. As soon as I heard it, I knew that the person who had composed it had not perceived his own nature. Even though I had not been taught about it at this time, I already understood the main idea. So I asked the attendant, whose verse are you chanting? He replied, you barbarian, don't you know about it? The patriarch told his disciples that the question of birth and death is most important matter, and since he was ready to transmit the robe and the Dharma to a successor, he ordered his followers to compose a stanza and submit it to him. He said that whoever understood the essence of mind would become the sixth patriarch. Our head monk, Shenju, wrote this verse on formlessness on the wall of the south corridor, and the patriarch told us to recite it, saying that great merit would be the result. I told the attendant that I also wished to recite the stanza so that I might gain merit in a future life. I added that I had been pounding rice for 8 months, but had never been to the main hall, and asked him to show me the stanza so that I might pay homage. The attendant took me to the corridor, and I asked that the verse be read to me, since I could not read characters. A low-ranking official from Changlu named Chang Ji-yong, who happened to be there, read it aloud to me, and I said, I have a stanza too. Would you write it down for me? The official exclaimed, you have composed the verse? How extraordinary! I replied, if you wish to seek out enlightenment, don't despise a beginner, for the lowest rank of person may have wisdom that high-ranking people ignore. If you slight others, you commit a great sin. The official said, dictate to me your stanza and I will write it down for you. But if you acquire the Dharma, you must liberate me. Please don't forget. My stanza went like this. Enlightenment is not a tree. The bright mirror has no stand. Originally, there is not one thing. What place could there be for dust? So that's as much as I'm going to read. So these two poems come up in our practice as konghans. So in The Whole World is a Single Flower, number 358, so towards the very end of the book. We have the Six Patriarchs poem. One day, Zen Master Sung San said to the assembly, the Sixth Patriarch's poem hit the head monk's poem. The head monk's poem says, body is Bodhi tree, mind is clear mirror's stand. Always clean, clean, clean. Don't keep dust. The Sixth Patriarch's poem says, Bodhi has no tree. Clear mirror has no stand. Originally nothing. Where is dust? With this, the Sixth Patriarch received transmission. But he made a big mistake when he said, originally nothing. Where is dust? So if you, he's talking to all of us, want transmission, you must hit the Sixth Patriarch's poem line by line, which is the fourth question below. The first question is, what is Bodhi? And of course, we don't want an explanation or like a demonstration. What is clear mirror? What is originally nothing? And the main question here, how do you hit the Sixth Patriarch's poem line by line? So maybe some of you have worked on this Konghan, maybe some of you have passed it. It's a very important part of our training. And I would say, and I think most teachers would agree with me, that you would not be an Inca candidate unless you pass this Konghan, the fourth question here. 359, the very next one, is very interesting, and I'll read it also. It's called the Sixth Patriarch's Head. So once Zen Master Sung San visited the temple of the sixth, excuse me, the Sixth Patriarch. That temple was Nanhua Temple on Chogye Mountain in China. Sung San asked the abbot, Venerable Sir, in Korea, there is a temple called Sangye-sa, where there is another relic head of the Sixth Patriarch. Now, I see the Patriarch's head is here too. Which is the true head of the Sixth Patriarch? The one right here is the true head, the abbot replied. Sung San said, your head is as white as snow. The abbot touched his head and laughed. And the questions we have here are, who is the Sixth Patriarch? Which one is the true head of the Sixth Patriarch? If everything comes from stillness, how did the Sixth Patriarch's head appear? Commentary. The Diamond Sutra says, all formations are appearing and disappearing. If you view all appearing as disappearing, if you all appearing as not appearing, then you can see your original face. Which one is the Sixth Patriarch's original face? Is it Korean or Chinese? If you put it all down, you can see the Sixth Patriarch's original face everywhere. The cucumber is green. The pepper is red. So that's as much as I'm going to read. We'll pause here for any questions that you have on this or the rest of the sutra, which is maybe another 20 30 pages, depending on which edition you're reading from. Have any of you read the whole sutra? Several of you, that's good. So I ask you, those of you who have read it, what do you think of it?
For me personally,
Yes, Charlie?
yeah, for me personally, I have been I really enjoyed the sutra, and it inspired me to really spend some honest time studying uh, that sutra and doing the follow up with reading the Diamond Sutra and uh,
Yeah.
going on from there. So it's inspired me in my studies.
Well, it's good that you went on to read the Diamond Sutra, which we don't pay that much attention to it, I think, at least at the Kansas Zen Center, but we should pay more. So next time you're scheduled to give a Dharma talk, tell us your experience in reading the Diamond Sutra. Okay?
Sure.
Got him. Okay. Anyone else who has read the Diamond Sutra, what do you make of it?
Well,
No,
the Sutra seems to me to be part biography and part sutra, you know, and so it's hard for me to think of it as a sutra um, per se, because it seems to be more biography. And when I first read it, kind of like you said, I thought, oh, that's kind of nervy, um, you know, but then as you were reading it this time, I was thinking, you know, he just sounds clear,
yeah,
because here he is telling a story which could be bragging, you know, I did this
yeah.
and I wrote that and I wrote this, but it doesn't, when you hear it, because I've only ever read it, I've never listened to it.
Uh,
And it's interesting the quality of listening to it, and that it's became more of a of a demonstration of his clarity.
well, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm a great believer in reading out loud, whether listening to someone or reading out loud myself. Um, Charlie?
Yeah, I was going to say back on the second page that you were reading. There's a line where he is speaking to the fifth patriarch uh, when he's coming from the place where he pounds rice, and
Right.
he says, "I replied, may I say that wisdom arises in my mind." That phrase really sticks with me. Because he's not saying what that wisdom is, but that he wants to cultivate it, and that's what it means to me. Is and since I do not stray from my essence of mind, I'm in a field of blessings. So
Mhm.
he's really not praising himself at all, but what he is saying is that his mind does sit in a field of wisdom.
Yeah.
What do I do with it?
What are you going to do with it?
Well, I mean, we're talking about sudden enlightenment on the one hand, but also the cultivation of that, digesting it.
Okay, let me point out, since you brought up sudden enlightenment, that is a feature of the Southern School, which of course is where he's from. The Northern School's gradual cultivation and gradual enlightenment. So that's a big distinction. I wanted to point out, this is just by the by, but I'm going to say it anyway, that this discourse is the only Buddhist discourse called a sutra, except for those spoken by Buddha. And it's an acknowledgement that this is something extraordinary. Yes, Jennifer.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done, so
Oh,
I'll
no,
wait.
I'm done.
So I have a question about where Charlie was reading to, like halfway down 21, because you were talking about him being kind of nervy and kind of sassy, but when he says, I'm in a field of blessings, I don't know what work you would have me do, is he saying he doesn't want to work? Or I kind of thought maybe he's saying that he doesn't mind work. It's not really work to him because he's in this clear state. So pounding rice, doing this, whatever, it's not work.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's how I took it
Okay.
also. That, he's not bragging, but he understands that doesn't matter what your status is. It doesn't matter what your work is. As Zen Master Song San would say, just do it. And that itself is enlightenment. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Uh, who else do we have? All of a sudden I went to speaker, went gallery. Here's the gallery. Someone had a hand up, I thought. Yes, please.
So I don't know that it's going to follow directly from, the nature of the conversation, but just some of the interesting things that I know, like I guess I have a lot of things I find interesting about it, but, moving on just a little bit further, I guess be on page 25, toward
Yeah,
the
go
bottom.
ahead. Well, let's all, if you can do that, let's all find.
Okay. So
Okay. Okay, so just right where we stopped. Yeah, page
yeah,
25.
right where we stopped, basically.
Yeah, go
Right.
ahead, please.
Exactly. So I like it when the patriarch, the whole thing is a great story, I guess is how I would say.
Yeah, I
This is a
agree.
great plot, right? We have this classic plot. I'm going to back up and just say that, where you have the commoner, the diamond in the rough, who no one's ever heard from, and who approaches this great and wonderful, amazing patriarch and temple that's renowned and has all these students and everything, but he's the one who really gets it, whereas the others don't. And so he's kind of discovered in that way, yes, and he says these really amazing things and blows everyone away. So that's just such a classic kind of plot I like. But anyway, so to continue that a little bit further, then you have this back and forth with the patriarch, and you have all this secrecy going on where the fifth patriarch has to protect him. Oh, he's this special guy, and everybody's going to kill him if they figure it out. So I got to send him to the back. We got to send him to the back of the monastery and kind of hide him while I kind of figure out what to do and while his own mind is cultivating, and this kind of thing, and percolating. And then they have this little back and forth thing, where then the patriarch comes to him at the bottom of page 25. And the next day, the patriarch came secretly to the room where I pounded rice with a stone tied around my waist. For extra weight on the foot pedal, and says, he first asked, should not a seeker after the Dharma risk his life this way? And then he continued, is the rice ready? And then he goes on and says, it has been ready for some time, I
Yeah, he
replied.
says specifically, the rice has been ready. Yeah, right.
Yes, it has been ready for some time, which can be read a lot of different ways. But then he says, it is only waiting to be sieved or sieved, or how do you pronounce sieved? I don't know.
Sieved, I think.
Sieved. Okay, sieved. So then, the patriarch goes on to, he knocked the foot pedal 3 times with his staff and left. I understood the patriarch's meaning. So that night at the third watch, I went to his room. He used his robe as a screen so that no one else could see from outside and explained the Diamond Sutra to me. So, and then he goes on. But my point is that they have this little kind of game going back and forth
Yeah.
like this. And really the patriarch is realized all the time, but he's also saying that even though his mind is ready, just like the rice is ready and everything, he hasn't quite stepped through the gate just yet. And so then the patriarch enlightens him with the Diamond Sutra, and then it kind of goes on from there.
Yeah.
And then there's a chase. Then he goes off on the lamb, and everything, and he sends it away, and and then the general's chasing him and all this stuff. It's just a cool story. So I mean, I have more to say, but I'll shut up there. So
Okay, no, thank you. I'm glad you're having such a strong reaction to it. It is a great read. Someone else had a hand? Maybe not. The screen shows a little hand. And I thought I saw one. There's a hand. Yeah, please, Malik.
Yeah. I agree with the previous comment. Sorry, I didn't get your name, but it is a wonderful story and reads quite. Um, there's a lot of sort of dynamic movement. The character that I love, and I'd love to sort of hear more about sort of your impression of it of him is the is Shen Hui, the or how do you pronounce it? Shen, the head monk.
Yeah, that's a good pronunciation, Shenhui.
Yeah, he's just such a tragic. I mean, I've been in this situation. I've agonized over something. If I do this, this might happen. If I do that, this might happen. How difficult, how difficult. It's just great, and he just can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
and I feel like, yeah, I'm curious what your impression of him is, because I
so
feel like he's kind
several
of
of you on the
unsung.
screen are nodding. We're nodding and smiling as Malik was saying this. Would you like to chime in, Steve?
Well, I mean, so for background, I mean, I've read probably half of the John McRae, including his introductions, and so the historical background. And also I've been reading, Tracing Back the Radiance with Chinua, and so they're
Yeah,
giving
good.
Chinual's background of thought, which includes this fight. So, it's actually this is the one that survives, which is the guys who kind of won the battle. Were discrediting Shen Shui or whatever, and so this is a polite kind of back and forth with it. But so he is this tragic character because the idea is that he's going to lose. So his gradual, cultivation is going to lose out to sudden enlightenment ultimately, and so they're demonstrating that process. And
Yeah,
anyway, so
that's a very good observation. This is a pretty subtle piece, Liz, I think you had your hand up.
Well, I agree with Malik that but he seemed to understand that he didn't have it, but he was in a situation where he was expected to.
Yeah.
And then what do I do? Because I'm expected to be the next ancestor, but I know I don't have, I mean, I know I don't. And I have all these people following me, and I don't even know where I'm going. Why are they following me? And then how do I get out of it? I can't get out of it, the kind of thing. And I appreciated the question because I lost him in that, but that's what I was thinking too with it, of the poor guy knows he doesn't have it, but also knows that he's in a position where he doesn't know what to do.
Well, and he even says, I will realize I will have wasted many years here. And that's such a sad perspective. It's like,
Yeah.
you haven't wasted these years here at the monastery, guy.
It sounds like he's willing to quit at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You mean conceded?
It's just if he finds out for sure that he has wasted that time, then he's going to concede that he's finished his investigation.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Shall we go on a little bit more?
Actually, Stan,
Yes.
can I ask one quick question? I think
Of course,
quick,
yeah.
before we move on. It's about the the Six Patriarchs poem.
Yes.
At the end of the poem, there's that italicized editorial,
Let's everybody find it.
page 25.
Right.
And it says that it gives the earlier version of the third line, but the third line is given here has become celebrated in Zen. So why did it even change if it's not the way the poem originally was?
You're talking about the line, originally there's not one thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me bring up, as the very opportune time, how this poem and the Six Patriarchs poem are represented in our Kongan book. So it's number 358, and I don't expect you, maybe some of you have it there, I don't know. Okay, you can read along with me. I'm going to read it out loud. 358. One day, Zen Master Sung San said to the assembly, "The sixth patriarch's poem hit the head monk's poem. The head monk's poem says, body is Bodhi tree, mind is clear mirror's stand. Always clean, clean, clean. Don't keep dust." Not the greatest translation, but you get the idea. The sixth patriarch's poem says, Bodhi has no tree, clear mirror has no stand. Originally nothing. Where is dust? With this, the sixth patriarch received transmission. But he made a big mistake when he said, originally nothing. Where is dust? So if you want transmission, anybody here want transmission? Yes, go for it. So if you want transmission, you must hit the sixth patriarch's poem line by line. And he has 4 questions, of which the fourth is the most important. But anyway, what is Bodhi? If you understand the literal meaning of Bodhi, you won't have any trouble answering this one. What is clear mirror? 3, what is originally nothing? And 4, how do you hit the sixth patriarch's poem line by line? So that's homework you have to pass in our school to get Inca. Hit the sixth patriarch's poem line by line. And no hints coming right now. So we'll move on to number 359, the sixth patriarch's head. This is something very interesting. Once Zen Master Sung San visited the temple of the sixth patriarch, Nanhua Temple on Chogye Mountain in China. Sung San asked the abbot, Venerable Sir, in Korea, there is a temple called Sangye-sa, where there is another relic, head of the sixth patriarch. And, some of you may have seen this head. You can go see it. I've seen it. Lost my place. Yeah, another relic. Which is the true head of the sixth patriarch? The one here is the true head, the abbot replied. Of course, this one. Sung San said that your head is as white as snow. It's a much better answer. If everything comes, number 3, if everything comes from stillness, how did the sixth patriarch's head appear? And the commentary quotes the Diamond Sutra, which of course is the sutra that Renang heard when he was, still cutting firewood, and that opened his mind. So the commentary, the Diamond Sutra says, all formations are appearing and disappearing. If you view all appearing as not appearing, then you can see your original face. Which one is the sixth patriarch's original face? Is it Korean or Chinese? If you put it all down, you can see the sixth patriarch's original face everywhere. The cucumber is green. The pepper is red. It's very easy to go online and see a photograph of the mummy in China. It has a head, so don't worry. It's worth a look anyway. Well, let's see where we are now. I'm going to pause now for any other questions or observations that any of you have. Yes.
I'd like to jump in.
Okay, and then you'll be next, Malik. So go ahead, Brad.
Um, Instead of viewing the poetry competition as an instance of antagonism, maybe we could look at it as a collaboration between, two people with two different views. And if you just do a line by line comparison of the poems, Hui Ning is not writing much of a different poem than the other counselor was. He's just going in there and, negating this or negating that, and maybe changing the message of the poem a little bit. But it's clear to me that Hui Ning's poem wouldn't have existed if not as a response.
Yeah, probably not. It is definitely a response. I disagree with you as to its poetic and dharmic quality, actually. But I get your point.
So you say the second poem is just much better than the first poem.
I think it hits it very well. And that's its function. Let's see, we have several people, but I'm glad you brought this up. And, some of this is a matter of translation. I don't think the translations, my profession is translation. I don't think the translations that are here are, first rate, actually, not that I'm going to offer any better, but I see your point about the second translation. So let's see, in order, I think we have Malik now.
Yeah, I was just curious. I think in our tradition, towards the beginning of the poem or towards the beginning of the sutra, we have him hear. He's delivering wood, and he hears a part of the Diamond Sutra. I've heard places, I think mostly in Dharma talks, people mention that the specific verse that he hears, and that verse, I don't know it by heart, but has something to do with the fact that you know. Don't attach to any thought.
Mhm.
And I'm curious where that specific, the fact that he hears that verse, because it doesn't say here and what he hears, and which sort of opens his mind.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you know where that comes from.
First of all, you're correct in that he only hears it. He says several times in the sutra he can't read Chinese.
Mhm.
He speaks it and understands it, but he says the way it's translated, I can't read characters, so please translate for me. I'm sorry, didn't quite get if you were actually asking me a question, could you repeat it?
Yeah, do you remember do you know of where the origin of sometimes we hear that the sixth patriarch attains enlightenment after hearing a specific part of the Diamond Sutra that says, don't attach to
Yeah.
anything.
Yes.
Thoughts come, thoughts appear, thoughts disappear,
Yeah.
don't attach to them.
Yes.
And this doesn't seem to exist in the current edition. I don't know if you know where that comes from.
I've had the same experience. And I only have one edition now. I thought I had it right here. I guess it's in the other room now. And decided, well, I better look at another translation. And if you find another one that is more satisfying, could you let me know? And I'll
Sure.
do the okay.
Sounds good.
And translation's a very tricky business, and you can compare. I have in the past compared two translations of the sutra, and was astonished by the difference. Even though, as a translator, I know, that you can expect this, but sometimes it's more extreme than you would think, and there is the possibility of people working with a slightly different text. A different edition, you might say. So, but I'm not drawing any conclusions. Let's leave it at that for right now. Thank you for bringing that up. Who else had a question? or maybe it's disappeared. Which
I could ask another one.
okay, one more, then we're going to move on. Please go ahead.
Back to the poem. In David's book, it says that Hui Ning might have been lifting some of those lines from Shuang Tzu. Do you have an opinion about that?
I read that too. I didn't check it out, so I don't have an opinion. But it's not an uncommon sort of thing. Poets lifting lines or phrases from other poets. It's not regarded as plagiarism, because hey, this is poetry, you know. But I wonder about it too, and I can't say more than that right now. But thanks for bringing that up. You'll find this sort of thing, you know, if you read different translations carefully. We are almost out of time. I would like to end by reading something from the very end of the Sutra of Huineng, which is about 80 pages long. When I read it again a few days ago, it took me 3 hours. It's worth every minute, I would say. This translation is A.F. Price and Wang Mu Lam, and it's a Shambhala edition. What the Sixth Patriarch has done right before this passage starts is he's named all of the patriarchs, starting with Shakyamuni Buddha. And by the way, after we know there are no more patriarchs. That whole patriarchal condition situation just stops. There was someone who sort of was the seventh patriarch, but he didn't last long at all, and he was sort of booed out. So the position is open if any of you would like to apply to be the next patriarch. I hope it's a woman, and we say matriarch. So reading from the end, he's just listed all of the patriarchs up until the fifth patriarch. And then the sutra continues. On the third day of the 8th moon of the year of Huichou, the second year of Shenchen era, 713 Common Era, after taking food at the Kuan monastery, the patriarch addressed his disciples as follows. Please sit down, for I am going to say goodbye. Thereupon Fa Hai spoke to the patriarch, Sir, will you please leave to posterity definite instructions whereby people under delusion may realize the Buddha nature? It is not impossible, replied the patriarch, for these men to realize the Buddha nature, provided they acquaint themselves with the nature of ordinary sentient beings. But to seek Buddhahood without such knowledge would be in vain, even if one shall spend eons of time in the search. Now, let me show you how to get acquainted with the nature of the sentient beings within your mind, and thereby realize the Buddha nature latent in you. Knowing Buddha means nothing else than knowing sentient beings. For the latter, ignore that they are potential Buddhas. The Buddha sees no difference between himself and other beings. When sentient beings realize the essence of mind, they are Buddhas. If a Buddha is under delusion in his essence of mind, he is then an ordinary being. Purity in the essence of mind makes ordinary beings Buddhas. With impurity in the essence of mind, even a Buddha is an ordinary being. When your mind is crooked or depraved, you are ordinary beings with Buddha nature latent in you. On the other hand, when you direct your mind to purity and straightforwardness, even for one moment, You are a Buddha. Within our mind, there is a Buddha, and that Buddha within is the real Buddha. If Buddha is not to be sought within our mind, where shall we find the real Buddha? Doubt not that Buddha is within your mind, apart from which nothing can exist. Since all things or phenomena are the production of our mind, the sutra says, when mental activity begins, things come into being. When mental activity ceases, they too cease to exist. In parting from you, let me leave you a stanza entitled, The Real Buddha of the Essence of Mind. People of future generations, that would be us, who understand its meaning will realize the essence of mind and attain Buddhahood. The stanza reads, the essence of mind, or tathata, suchness, is the real Buddha, while heretical views and the three poisonous elements are Mara. Enlightened by right views, we call forth the Buddha within us. Having uttered this, he sat reverently until the third watch of the night. Then he said abruptly to his disciples, I am going now, and in a sudden passed away. A peculiar fragrance pervaded his room, and a lunar rainbow appeared, which seemed to join up earth and sky. The trees in the wood turned white, and birds and beasts cried mournfully. So I'd like to leave it right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan.